Hi, this is Doug Howard with Growth Team Strategies, and I'm here today with the exquisite Kathi Fleck with our podcast, Selling the Dream, that looks at strategies and ideas for how to get your business ready to sell and things you can do to make it more sellable. Kathi, how are you today?
I'm great, Doug. How are you doing?
You're exquisite.
I should say I'm exquisite.
Yes, we've just begun to come up with the adjectives to describe Kathi. We're only a couple episodes in. So, excellent. Awesome. So today we're going to kind of make an assumption and then have a specific conversation about a particular way to transition the business. And the idea is at this point, we've decided that it's not going to go to one of our kids or one of the family members. It's not going to go to someone on staff. We're going to take it out to market. Right. And to do that, we're most likely going to engage some sort of a broker. And what kind of goes into that thinking? What's that process look like? How do you decide what a good broker looks like? So, Kathi, I know you've been through that process. I have as well. So what are your thoughts as we kick off that conversation?
I found it overwhelming. And who do you pick? Who do you choose? It's not even an area that I had any expertise in. I did not know them, the different brokers or M&A groups, any of those. And so actually the broker that I chose was an M&A group, mergers and acquisition group, and they reached out to me. They were just doing networking and looking for potential sellers of their business. And so I liked them, and I actually did evaluation with them, and that's before I shopped around to see who else might be out there. But I did then at some point go and compare, and I met with a local M&A company or broker who was kind of a good old boy in Texas and had his own little group of companies that he would contact. And then I also met with a franchise who was a broker for a franchise company. And they all had similar approaches, but were all a little bit different. So it was difficult to really decide, because I think if I had not gone with the first contact, I might have chosen somebody else, just not knowing.
Yeah. Yeah, it's hard because I think a lot of people haven't been through this process. You think of other processes you've never been through before. You either ask somebody, hey, can you recommend, a good hairstylist, or can you recommend, whatever it might be. Or, for a lot of professional services, I think of things like where maybe I've needed a particular kind of attorney, but my business attorney said, well, for that, here's someone to talk to. Or like a doctor will, you need a cardiologist. Well, here's someone that you should be talking to. For business broker, not a lot of people have made that, gone through that process, made that choice. And it's not always that there's someone readily available to say, here's somebody that should, you should talk to. So I do think that's a challenge.
Mm-hmm.
So I think one of the things that I see, Kathi, with business brokers, and it's interesting because in different states the laws are different, right? In some states you have to be certified, others not so much. In some states, it depends on whether or not real estate's involved in the deal. But in states where it's really not regulated at all, it's really kind of the Wild Wild West, right? I mean, you can just hang out a shingle and say, well, I want to broker businesses. For other places, there's a set of ground rules and that type of thing. But I think there's a difference between a brokerage company that looks at their customer base as clients and those that are kind of working the numbers. That if I just sign up enough listing agreements, something will sell and I'll make a good living. And that doesn't leave you in a very good place if you're one of the companies that's maybe not the most sellable.
Right. And I think the company that I worked with in many respects also worked by the numbers and told me pretty much up front that not every business that they took on was going to sell for many different reasons.
Mm-hmm.
And I also knew that having a remodeling company, they didn't sell that well. There was a time when remodeling companies really didn't even sell at all.
Yeah.
And so I knew I was going to have a challenge with it. And that's one of the reasons why I chose the brokerage company that I did. And that's because they had a much wider breadth of opportunities. Their website they had several different websites, but they had a lot of different opportunities on there. I
Yeah.
thought that a local guy probably would have reached out to the local other companies more like an acquisition. And I thought, well, was he really going to be able to handle it? And then I thought the franchise broker didn't have as much expertise, and he was kind of working by himself. So I
Yeah.
really wanted a bigger opportunity because I really wanted to sell it, and I didn't really want to waste any time during that process.
Sure. Yeah, no, that makes sense. How much do you think kind of a good personal, good working relationship enters into that the success of having a broker?
Yeah, I think like anything, relationship is everything. So when I had my business valued, I did not put it on the market, and then I did a couple years, met with them again a couple years later, and really did not like the gentleman that they assigned to me. He and I just did not click, and then he just decided right off the bat, well, let's put it on the market for this lower value. And I said, no, I'm just not ready for that. So I stopped it. And then when I went back, the next year is when I was really ready. And I said, I don't want that same gentleman. I wanted somebody different. And they assigned me a woman that we connected with very easily. And so we worked in tandem. It was also a lot of work on my part because I also was saying, well, why don't we send out marketing to some of the different local people. I was kind of pushing because things were slow for a while there. And I said, well, what can we do to make this move a little bit quicker? And you were helping me with that too. We were collaborating on what can we do to help the brokerage company who was working with numbers and trying to get this to sell.
Yeah, yeah. No, and knowing the person you're talking about, I think it was to me very beneficial. The second person you were talking about, just that it was an iterative process. It's not just sort of listing it and then there's a showing. I always like to compare selling a business to selling a house because I think most of us understand the selling the house process, and there's some real differences. And even just being able to describe it, there's no comparables in a business, right? A 3-bedroom colonial in a certain neighborhood is going to compare to some other 3-bedroom
Right,
colonial in that neighborhood.
right.
Businesses, even in the same industry, are such apples and oranges. It
Hmm.
really takes, I think, somebody that's got the willingness and the curiosity, maybe, and the creativity to dig into what your story is, to
Hmm.
really understand what makes it strong, what makes it challenging,
Right.
that kind of thing.
Right, because I did have challenges as well, and at that point, it was like these challenges are not going to be fixed. Being the face of the company and um, in charge of sales and so many different parts of the business. This is what we have, and so what can we do to make this business sell? And yes, I did have an excellent working relationship with the broker, and she responded very easily. She worked with whatever I needed help with, and I've referred her to others. So she does a great job.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think the other thing that I always feel is so important is someone that's really persistent and understands
Mhm.
they need to carry you all the way over the finish line, right? Just
Yeah,
finding a buyer and getting them in the, qualified is a big part of the process, but it's not the whole process.
right. She had to walk it through with each one of those, I say dates that I had as we were trying to figure out who was going to buy the business, and then even with the actual buyer. And we ran into challenges towards the end, and she pretty much had to lay it on the line a couple times. This is what we've got. If you're wanting to still buy the business, you've got to do this and this. And so
Yeah.
it was she didn't have any problems telling anybody what they needed to do or what it was like.
Yeah. Yeah. So I don't know if that makes her your chaperone or your maid of honor, but either way, sticking around all the way to the finish line, right,
She's my
is a
friend.
big deal. Yeah, there you go. Yeah, and I think that's really important. And I think, like any professional service, the best thing you can do is, reach out to folks that have gone through the process, find out what their experience was, and then trust your judgment about a good
Right,
connection. I mean, I even as much as I love working with lots of folks and connect with lots and lots of folks, sometimes I find that just people just don't connect with
right.
my personality, and it's just like as soon as you detect that, whether you're the customer or the client or you're the service provider, I think
Hmm.
it's wise to just say like this isn't a good the relationship needs to be there. It needs to be a good fit. And if it's not, let's find something that is,
Right. Right. It's got to be a good fit. Because it's hard. You're dealing with a lot of stress during this time frame, and like you say, carrying it through the finish line. You're having to keep the business going. I kept it quiet from my staff, and I needed to be able to keep all of this business moving forward and still sell and still try to deal with the potential buyer. So there's a lot that goes on during that time frame.
Yeah, no doubt. Well, I'm sure anybody listening can find it impossible to imagine there are personalities I don't get along with, but that's a different podcast for a different day. In the meantime, the process of finding the right broker can really make a big difference in I think, someone's ability to sell the business. So, all right. Well, Kathi, thanks again for your insights. They're always awesome, always spot on. And this is why you are the exquisite Kathi Fleck.
Thank you, Doug. Have a good day.
You too. All right. We'll talk to you soon. Selling the Dream.
Thank you for listening to the Selling the Dream podcast, starring Doug, Howard, and Kathi Fleck. Both Doug and Kathi have built and sold successful businesses and hope this podcast will help other small business owners do the same. Tune in every week to hear more tips for increasing the value of your company so you get the highest return for your years of hard work when it comes time to sell or transition your business. Can't wait till next week? Check out our website for more information at www.growththemes.com.